right here. And I just wanted to pull this up. We're not going to dive in. We both did a show. I was watching your show earlier when you were talking about this. And last night I went pretty heavily into this as well. But I do just want to kind of get your reactions on this show about some of the language that's in this new affidavit. I know we were talking about it just before we went on live here, that there's even newer stuff popping off. But I am still interested in what was really being talked about yesterday, specifically from this Richard Bentonti, probably butchering that guy's name, but Mr. Bentonti, who is an investigator and a criminal investigator that is on the Bryan Kohberger and Taylor side of things, and some of the stuff that he says that he's found.
Right. Yeah. No, there's some pretty crazy stuff in here.
And specifically, well, okay, two things. I'm going to start with this one right here. The number 11. You know, this is from Bentonti right here. During the course of my investigation, it became known to me that Bethany Funke has information material to the charges against Mr. Kohberger. Portions of information Miss Funke is exculpatory. It took me a minute to learn that last night as well. To the defendant, Miss Funke's information is unique to her experiences and cannot be provided by another witness. That right there just sounds insane.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think there's a lot of clues in that statement. There's a lot of clues as to what this possibly could be. When it comes to that second part, or the last part, which says that is information unique to her experience, that leads me to believe that whatever experience that may be, that occurred at that house. Now, there's been some rumors and speculation. Even myself thought maybe perhaps this was something that occurred at the Sigma Chi house, but there was more than one witness there at the Sigma Chi house if something had occurred there. And so this leads me to believe that more than likely, whatever information she has, it's from the night and the incident, and maybe perhaps something that she had heard or seen at the house. Now, the other thing that I'm thinking of is if it's exculpatory, that meaning that it could exonerate him, or information that could prove his innocence, leads me to believe that that's either information that she has that puts somebody else at that house or puts Bryan Kohberger at another place. Right. One or the other.
Yeah, it's got to be something like that, because I mean, and when you really read it like that, what could be specific to her, somebody that we've really not heard a lot about in this case specifically, right? Very little has come out about her. Really, the focus on the other person has been on, Dylan so far. But what has this man found or discovered? Or would it have been in past, testimonies from her, interviews from police? Because they mentioned that they were going over that. But what could he have been doing as a private investigator? Like, any hunches that what he would have been kind of, because I don't understand how, like, of course a private investigator is going to have, I'm sure he was probably a former police officer, maybe even higher credentials than that. He probably has connections within law enforcement, but how has he, and he's probably also from Idaho and she's in Nevada. Like, how has he dug into her deeper? Do you think it was through nefarious means? I guess is really what I'm trying to get at. Like,
I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, he was hired on or appointed by Ann Taylor, which is Bryan Kohberger's attorney. So I'm assuming that he probably has privilege to all the information that Ann Taylor has. And he may have been going through some of the statements that Bethany Funke had stated. And, because in the probable cause affidavit, it does state that they took statements from Bethany and Dylan Mortensen. They just don't go into detail what is that Bethany stated. Maybe perhaps there's a reason behind why they didn't go into great detail. The other thing is, I think, what do you think about the coincidence as far as this coming out March 22nd, and then 2 days later, the whole Giglio Brady issue is brought up?
Is that going to connect somehow as well?
It very well could be, because when you look at Brady is basically hiding or not disclosing of evidence that could show innocence to somebody, usually the person that they are attempting to prosecute. And the Giglio aspect of it has to do with credibility. And so a lot of us assume that because they had two officers that had a situation with the sticker gate, so to speak, and that they had lied under oath, basically saying that there was no body cam footage of the interrogation that they had with one juvenile and another person, referencing that sticker gate, and then come to find out later afterwards that there was video evidence from a body cam, meaning that they had lied under oath. I thought that was initially it. I believe that was Officer Nunez and Gunnarsson, and those were two of the officers that had arrived on scene right away. Maybe perhaps they try to also not disclose something. There's been one thing that I've told everybody, like the way Brady works is, and I was explaining it with Big Blue last night or this morning, Um, if Blue gets off of work at 9 o'clock in the morning and there's a crime that's committed at 9:15 or 9:30, and um, Blue finds, he gets home and he discovers this crime, and they start to say, hey, this crime had occurred at 9:15. You got off of work at 9:30, at 9 o'clock. You had means, let's just say this is somebody that he had motive against. You have means, opportunity, and motive. And then he says, nah, man, I went for a drive, right? I went for a drive around town. They go back, they look at some video evidence, and they find his car by a red light at 9:15, half a mile away or a mile away from the house in the direction that he said. And so that kind of leads him to believe that, all right, maybe he was being truthful. And instead of putting that evidence out there, they hide it.
Yeah, dude.
Because it doesn't go with their narrative. So that's the Brady aspect of it. Is there possibly something that Bethany may have stated that would have gone against what maybe Dylan Mortensen has stated, or maybe against what the narrative that the police department is going with, and thus hid that information? And if that was an officer that did that, then that would definitely have issues with his credibility, and also fall under line when it comes to Brady. So what I'm thinking is, and this is the other thing as well, is maybe she recognized the voice that was there, and she stated something like, oh, I think that the person that was there was one of the boyfriends.
Right.
Then, or maybe she saw something, and it just doesn't go with the narrative that this is Bryan Kohberger. That's the only thing that I can possibly think of. I know there's been some rumors out there that she supposedly heard yelling and screaming and things of that nature. People awake at the time, which would go against what Dylan Mortensen stated as far as not hearing that aspect of it.
Yeah. I could see that, yeah, actually being like a split in their actual statements, and that being a problem for the state, right?
It could be, but I don't see how that necessarily exonerates Bryan Kohberger.
Right,
if she were to say, I heard somebody screaming, two men yelling in the bedroom, that doesn't mean that it's not Kohberger. The way it would exonerate Kohberger, in my opinion, is if she recognized that voice or saw somebody that she recognized at that house.
Yeah, that's the only thing that could make sense with the way he's wording this. Let me put it back there on the internet. The way he's wording it here, because I mean, I can't wrap my head kind of around what he would have or he would have found that is making him so. I mean, honestly, if they've gone as far as to drop this affidavit, right, and subpoena her to come, they're pretty confident that they have something, right? Oh shit.
Yeah. Well, look at number 9.
Let's go back here.
Look at number 9.
Okay, number 9. Bethany Funke was interviewed by police on several occasions. She disclosed things she heard and things she saw.
So I don't think you put that in there if she maybe perhaps didn't hear somebody that she recognized, or didn't see somebody that she recognized that wasn't Kohberger.
Right. That is very specific. And then right after number 10, Bethany Funke was present at the home 8 hours later when police were called, arrived on scene. So yeah, that's basically stating she was there the entire time.
Right. And the probable cause pretty much states that she was there. She says that supposedly she slept through the entire the entire incident. Now, the other thing that they looked into, so if we go to the probable cause affidavit, the only thing that Bethany Funke has anything to do with this case is she puts Ethan and Xana at the Sigma Chi house. She puts them home at 1:45, 2 o'clock in the morning, and they looked at their phone records to determine more or less when this crime had occurred. Now, the reason why I think that's important, or that aspect as far as the phone records are, is it's been rumored or been put out there by Ethan's sister-in-law that Dylan called everybody in the house. Now, if she called everybody after the fact, and they can then coordinate that time when she called and the time that when Bethany may have answered, because my theory is that maybe perhaps she did hear yelling, maybe perhaps she did hear what she thought was just a loud party, same thing that Dylan did.
Yeah.
Dylan goes, and yells outside, whoever the alleged person may be, whether it's Bryan Kohberger or somebody else who committed this crime, heard somebody yell at them, thought, okay, it's time to go, time to get out of here, leaves straight away. Dylan sees this person, is scared, sees that he has a mask that probably would scare her. Mm-hmm. So she begins to call people in the house. Bethany answers and says, oh, don't worry about it. I heard Jay Jack DeCour. Not saying that Jack
Right,
DeCour was
right.
there or that she heard him, but
Just
she's
a
like,
familiar
it's
voice. That
Jack.
would make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just Jack and so and so, or Showalter and so. Don't worry about it. Everything's all right. And they're using that timestamp as a moment of when this crime had committed, and that's how you can kind of determine a time frame. You have that call log. You have also the video surveillance of the white Elantra at the time, and the ring audio that was going on, and that all indicates the time of when this crime was committed. And I believe that's what it says almost verbatim in the probable cause affidavit, but they put it in such weird words that if you're not familiar with legal terminology, it can be a little bit confusing.
Yeah, that's me on a lot of this, actually. Real quick, we do have a couple of super chats here I want to get to. 3434JJJ for the 1999 super chat. Thank you for that, 34. Appreciate it. At the request of the defense, I believe it could be the prosecution, but Idaho's attorney general is now on the case. That's kind of what we were seeing earlier before we came into this. Some of the new info coming out. Thank you for that, though, 3434. Also see another one here from Creed64 with a $4.99 super chat. All the bings on his cell phone could have been seeing Bethany and visiting her at the house. So do you think there's anything to that? Do you think there's any could?
No,
I mean, at the same time, dude, that would be so messed up. Like if she's holding on to anything like that, right?
The thing is, they're going based off the statements that she said to the police, right? That's what this says. She made several statements and disclosed things that she heard and things that she had seen. If she had disclosed that Bryan Kohberger was there at that house and she put him there, then that would be in the probable affidavit that somebody put him at the house.
Right. Yeah.
Regardless if it was a so-called booty call. Let's just say that was the situation. We'll go to the extent of that. If it was that, and she told him, they asked who was at that house. She goes, oh, Bryan Kohberger came over. We're talking, we're dating. She puts him at that house. You have the DNA on the sheet. That's the only thing that's missing out of this, as far as the probable cause affidavit goes, is putting him at the home. And so if that were to be the case, I don't think that that's information that would necessarily help Kohberger as much as it probably could hurt him, given all the other information that is out there. Somebody putting him at the house. So when it comes to this, I don't think that's the aspect of it. In my opinion, I think it's that she put somebody else there.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, because I mean, the more I've heard that numerous times, and that crossed my mind too. I can't lie, but when you really think about it, it doesn't add up. But I wanted to go over this right here, and I know you were talking about this earlier as well. You and Big Blue went into it a little bit on your show earlier. Hold on. I might have passed it up here. What's in these? Brian Enton ones here. Here we go. Yeah, the craziest thing that's said right here at the end here, even if they find, say they did get her, they did end up getting her to the pretrial, right? That part right here where they basically say, even if she possesses exculpatory evidence, which remains unknown, granted, there is no place or reason to present that evidence at a preliminary hearing. That is insanity, dude. Like, and they would rather go to trial and be in front of a jury than, that's just it to say the wildest side of the spectrum. If he could be innocent, right? That's fucked up. Like,
right. 100%. That's the one thing I do not agree with this. At any point of this investigation, if there is evidence out there that proves somebody is innocent, that needs to be brought up immediately. I mean, the police were very quick to clear Jack DeCour, clear the victims of the other victims in the house, clear Showalter, clear the private driver. But yet, as soon as they got evidence that stated that these persons were possibly not involved, they were able to put that out there, clear their name. You put yourself in this guy's shoes. Let's just say he is innocent. He's sitting behind bars wrongfully, if he is innocent.
Right.
And in my opinion, if there's any type of evidence, it doesn't matter if it's prior to conviction, post conviction, because there are people who have gone and been convicted of crimes that they did not commit. It's been documented several times. It's not as often as we probably would imagine, most times than not, they're rightfully convicted. But
It does
nobody's
happen.
perfect, no system is perfect, and some people do end up going to jail for something they didn't do. As soon as evidence comes out that something, in my opinion, if there's ever evidence that comes out, that to me puts there's an innocent man, or says there's an innocent person in jail, and that evidence should come forward immediately.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, you're taking somebody's freedom away, and at this point, we don't know what this evidence is, but if it is out there, I mean, this guy spent what, 6 months behind bars, with under some, I don't know what conditions he's in, but nobody deserves that if they're innocent.
No. Even if he's being treated fine and dandy, in the jail that he's in, Jesus Christ, his whole life, I mean, that's something. Again, it's the furthest part. If this could happen, if they do have the wrong guy, like, that would be crazy, dude. And then I think you said it earlier. You said if that is what's happening, this is about to be a really rich dude. He's going to be selling this. I mean, he's going to be suing motherfuckers. He's going to be selling this shit to Hollywood. He'll be writing books probably, and rightfully so at that point. But yeah, and I mean, I'm not that far yet. I'm not saying I am, but reading that, the way it's actually the way it's actually written out there is quite frankly, it's gross as hell. Like
Do
that.
you think maybe perhaps do you think he could go after like News Nation, like, because right now News Nation is still throwing him under the
Dude,
bus?
that'd probably be the one, right? Like, he'd probably have to go after Ashley Banfield directly. Chris Cuomo directly, bro.
Yeah. I mean, that's
I don't know.
I would agree. So, I mean, when it came to this case, I've told a lot of people that there's some evidence here that doesn't really jive, and I think there's a lot of holes that a defense can bring up. And that for me, when people ask me, do you think he did it or not? I honestly tell people I have no idea. To me, it comes down to the evidence in the car. If there is DNA in that car, then I think he's done skis. He's done. Now, Kohberger should know at this point what that evidence is. And if he's still willing to fight it and exonerate, and there's some sort of evidence here that could exonerate him, maybe there isn't any DNA in that car. And if there's not, this guy left in a, from what I understand, and based on what the probable causes said is what Dylan has stated, I strongly believe whoever committed this crime was startled by Dylan yelling out, "Shut up," right? Because that's been what's been reported. I think that may have happened. And it makes a lot of sense if somebody heard somebody say something, they're probably in the moment, tunnel vision, going through, doing whatever it is that they're doing in that room with Xana and Ethan, and all of a sudden they just hear somebody yell. They don't know what was yelled.
Real quick, hold on. Right here in the chat, we have a bigger channel in here. Harsh Reality is in here, and he's saying someone woke me up calling me saying someone overseas just read the 911 transcript. Can someone confirm these reports? And I haven't seen anything like that at all. Like, that'd be crazy.
I'm gonna look it up real quick.
Wow. And yeah, thank you for coming in here, Harsh Reality. I watch your stuff pretty regularly.
Me too. Daily activity log. I'm not seeing anything on the Google.
It's just read over. Who's here? Apparently, the 911 transcript was just read by an overseas account. I can't locate it. Everybody start digging. Yeah, we'll have to start seeing what we can find. That would be crazy.
That would be nuts.
It's got to be out there, right? I mean, that shit's got to be starting to drop. I know everything's gag ordered up,
but the thing is, like, the 911 call, I don't understand why that's not even released. Like, that doesn't make any sense why that's not released.
Dude, that never happens, right?
And why wouldn't it be released?
There's a lot of little weird things like that. I mean, maybe the argument could be that it's such a viral, sensationalized thing, but that still shouldn't affect the laws, right? Like, if because even people are putting in the the Freedom of Information Acts to get stuff and being denied on stuff that probably should be out there by now.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. There's a lot of things that aren't, and it just kind of seems like the police department has used verbiage, or law enforcement used verbiage, something to the effect like, what was it, that to protect law enforcement, this is why they have a gag order. Like, what do they need protecting from?
Right, that was very weirdly written.
And then you find out the Brady Giglio thing. You find out You know, maybe now that there's more to this story, is it the fact that they're trying to protect themselves from being ridiculed? I don't know, but there's some fishy stuff going on here, and it's definitely, in my opinion, um, it's not looking good, man. At this point, with all this that's come out, uh, I think that it's going to be a very difficult case to prosecute. You know, even the presence
I
or the
don't think
scene
that they expected.
preservation wasn't there.
I don't think they expected it to go this far.
Maybe not.
Like
Maybe not.
honestly,
But you know,
I don't think so, man. Like, I don't think like. Well, then again, at the bottom, the craziest part is the first thing he said was, "I can't wait to be exonerated." Right. So like right there, and then like the further we get down
yeah.
the line, the more weird shit starts to happen. But I would say probably before that was even said, before they started, like I'm talking December 30th, 31st, January 1st, they were probably like, "This dude's going to buckle any second," right?
You would think so. You know, and I think that when you read the probable cause affidavit and you read some of the information that they have, I think they were banking on finding a lot of information and finding evidence there. You know, you would assume that somebody committing a crime like this and having to leave so quickly, not being able to clean up after himself or not being able to clean himself would have transferred a lot of DNA into the car. So you're assuming you're going to get some evidence there. You're going to assume, and even the probable cause affidavit states that they assume that they're going to find planning on his phone, on his computer. They're going to find evidence that shows that this guy maybe had maps drawn up, things of that nature that were, you know, that would lead them to believe that this is the person that they have. I think I hear myself.
I think you're good.
I can hear myself in my ear like a few seconds behind.
Oh, weird. Did it just start?
Just a few minutes ago, or like while I was talking in this last sentence.
Weird. Does
Like
anybody?
right now, I can hear him match.
Does
Oh, it's louder now.
weird? Does anybody hear that in the actual video? Because on my side, you sound okay. But that is annoying as hell, though.
Yeah, I can just hear like myself about like almost if I'm listening to myself on YouTube, where it's like a delay, so to speak. All right, it went away. Whatever that was.
Weird. Dude, I have technical issues on here on the reg, though. It could totally be on my side.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna keep looking for that after you know, later on, because that if we can find that transcript, that would be absolutely insane. That'd be crazy as hell. And I can't really keep up with chat. I see a lot of people saying a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people in here. Thank you all for everyone for hanging out in here right now. Appreciate the hell out of it. There's over 200. There's 242 people in here. Hit that like. Help me get this thing to at least 100 likes today, guys. We'll get that son of a bitch into the algorithm. Appreciate everybody for hanging out in here. Yeah, we are also.
So yeah, I can't find anything.
I know. I was doing a little bit of side digging here myself.
On the interweb. Yeah, nothing. Just the information. Now I have reason to believe that the person that called 911 was Hunter Johnson, who lived nearby. I believe he lived in that, or his girlfriend, one of the two. But he stayed at the house that was between the victim's house in 1122 and what was at one time Adam Lauda and Jack DeCour's house, the one where they had the. I'm not sure if you saw that Instagram video where this guy's shotgunning a beer on the top of the roof.
Yeah, I did. I've seen that. Yeah.
So that's where Adam Lauda and Jack DeCour at one point lived. Now, I don't know if they still lived there at the time of this incident, but they at one point did. And I believe that Hunter Johnson was dating somebody named Emily. She may have been the one that was living at that house. It may have been him. However, I heard that it was that he came from that house. They had called him, and the only scenario that makes sense for me is that Dylan may have called him because he was Ethan's best friend, and said, "Hey, you know, Ethan, there was somebody in the house. Ethan's not answering the phone. I'm afraid to go outside. Can you come check on him?" He's worried about it, so he ends up running out there, forgetting his phone behind. Discovers the bodies. You know, yells, "Call 911." Dylan's freaking out because you know, her fears are somewhat realized, and he ends up taking the phone and calling and speaking to dispatch.
Yeah, I've seen that picture, and like that picture was one of the first ones that was coming out. Like, well, not one of the first ones that was coming out, but one of the ones that was kind of like almost giving that party vibe to the whole area, right?
Yeah,
almost kind of gave it like that. Well, okay, see what's happening here on a regular basis. And then we started seeing the body cam footages come out and whatnot. But yeah, absolute madness, man. But yeah, this case is just full of surprises. It never stops. Like every single week, there's something crazy going down.
No, yeah, 100%, man. Like, and like I said, this thing is there's so many issues with this case, you know, but it then kind of falls into play. Like, you know, there's a few things I can't get around. One of the things is that when you look at this case against Kohberger and Hull, you have the basically the video canvassing, right? They checked out that there was a white vehicle without a front license plate in the Pullman area, and that it goes down SR, goes towards the direction of SR 270, which is a highway that leads back to Moscow. Then you have that same vehicle, possibly that same vehicle, or a vehicle matching a description of that one, coming back into Pullman at 5:30. Right, so that leads you to believe that if this is the person, or that there's a possible suspect is coming from Pullman, Washington. So or at least in that direction. So they end up going and checking out who's registered at WSU and who lives in that area, and they come across Kohberger. He ends up having a car that at the time of the incident didn't have a front license plate because Pennsylvania doesn't require it. You check his phone records, and his phone was off during the commission of the crime, and during the time in which that vehicle was seen traveling out of Pullman, Washington. And then you have corroborating evidence of him coming into Pullman, Washington, and you're able to corroborate that with his phone pings and match those up together to determine that that vehicle at 5:30 in the morning is actually him. So, you know, you then find out that he matches the height and weight. His phone was off during the time of the commission of the crime.
That stuff is still why ultimately I think it's him.
Yeah, the DNA. Yeah, the DNA on the sheath then kind of ties him there, puts him possibly at the scene. So
there's too much that kind of ties together there. And again, I'm not, and at the end of the day, I'm not 100% convinced. I will say that, but those are the things right there that makes me think that they're onto something. And I think there's even more that we haven't seen fully as the full picture, but nah, dude, that stuff right there, that's not by mistake. That's not all of that being a coincidence would be fucking weird.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so, in my opinion, I think that's why I think so strongly, and not so much strongly because I really don't know.
At the end of the day, we need to see. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they may have gotten the right guy. Now, do they have enough to put him behind bars without reasonable doubt? Think beyond reasonable doubt? I don't think so. Not right now. Now, those ID cards, if one of them does come back to one of the victims in the house, I think that's pretty damning. I mean, that puts you in the house at one point, and doesn't necessarily put you in the house at that time. Now, he was supposedly, and there was an article or something that came out from News Nation that he had broken into somebody else's house, you know, and something about.
Oh yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
So
is that the one about
he could easily?
Was that the recent one with the friend about the surveillance thing? Yeah.
So he could then turn around and say, "Hey, I broke into a couple of houses. I broke into their house at one point, and that's why my DNA's there, and I stole one of their IDs. I was not there that night." So.
Yeah.
It's unlikely as it is, that could be a defense to why he has it. Is I'm a burglar. He can just go around saying I burglarize people's houses. You know, I don't commit murder. I burglarize. There's a big difference in penalty between those two.
Yeah, 100%, man. That is a very good point.